This is episode 2 of the annual podcast. I'm your host. I've poured my fun drink, and away we go. These rules have evolved over time. These are truly tongue-in-cheek references to internet culture, humor, online behavior, and not hard and fast rules. Some versions of this list contain more rules. Some versions of this list contain fewer rules. This is a satirical and chaotic set of guidelines from an earlier time, back when WWW was the World Wide Web. There is no universally agreed upon official list and numbering. Please allow me to introduce you the rules of the internet. Rule 0. Do not mess with cats. This rule seems self-explanatory, and the good news is, if this rule is not self-explanatory to you, you now have an opportunity to pay the stupid tax and learn why it should have been self-explanatory. Rule number 1. Do not talk about / lowercase b /. This is a reference to a random board, a random place to post on the internet, the random board. Historically, one of the more chaotic and infamous places of the internet. This rule is inspired by the first rule of Fight Club, which is simply you do not talk about Fight Club. This rule is about emphasizing secrecy and exclusivity. Truly, it's supposed to be funny, a joke, as this was at one time a widely known rule in place, despite the rule to not talk about it. That's the joke. In reality, it was never a secret, just a place of extreme randomness and controversial content. Rule number 2, do not talk about / b /. The not is all caps here. Do not talk about. Rule number 2 is in place to and reinforce rule number 1. Rule number 2 here is about emphasizing secrecy even further. It is a more intense repetition of rule number 1. Again, this is mostly an inside joke, as random board was infamous and widely known at one time. Essentially, rule number 2 is rule number 1, but louder. Rule number 3, we are anonymous. Originally, anonymous was about anonymity. It was about a lack of fixed identity. It was about the fact that most individuals on the web, surfing the web, did not register their personal identifiable information, as everyone was anonymous. Not your username, not your pictures. No. The simple fact that your legal birth name and date and other identifiable markers were not associated with you online. Everyone was anonymous. Rule number 3, we are anonymous. Over time, this evolved into a collective term for users acting together. Later on, it became more associated with hacktivist, but originally, at the beginning, in the inception, rule number 3, we are anonymous, was simply that. Everyone was posting anonymously, and no one realized it yet. No one really understood what that meant for interactions on the internet. Rule number 4, anonymous is legion. This rule builds on rule number 3. It's emphasizing that anyone can be anonymous. Anonymous is everywhere, and it's more a collective, not an individual. All of a sudden, we started to see online, not a single person, but massive decentralized groups. Anonymous as legion is actually a biblical reference. In the Bible, there was a demon-possessed man who expressed, quote, My name is Legion, for we are many. This rule is highlighting the idea that Anonymous operates as a collective force with no central leadership, making it unpredictable and difficult to counter. In reality, Anonymous is a collective, not an individual, but at the same time, Anonymous is individuals. It's a little bit counterintuitive, counterproductive to declare everyone's marching under the same flag for this issue at this time. But in reality, this unpredictability, this group is, technically speaking, vast and decentralized. Today, at the time of recording, this is not something that is prevalent online in the same way. As over time, people have been born in a world where the internet existed before their birth. Over time, people have grown up as digital natives. And doing that, their relationship with this phrasing, these rules, is different from people who are digital tourists, who were born and grew up and had their formative years in a time before the internet. Rule number 5, Anonymous never forgives. This is a threat. It is a warning. It is a suggestion. Anonymous is against you and they won't back down. They hold grudges and will retaliate. This was the time when Anonymous became associated with online activism and cyber attacks, crime, for better and for worse. This rule is implying that once Anonymous targets someone or something for a perceived wrongdoing, censorship, or challenge to any and all internet culture and belief, it will be met with retaliation, mass trolling campaigns, hacking, and other harmful and benevolent campaigns, targets, and attacks versus organizations and individuals. Rule number 5 is a very, very curious rule because due to the anonymity of the internet, and rule number 4, remember rule 3, rule 4, the legion of anonymous, all of a sudden outliers, individuals who may not have connected with anything more so than this anonymous. They didn't feel like outliers. And that's probably a good thing. But like everyone, our actions are important. And there are consequences, both positive and negative, for them. Rule number 6, anonymous can be a horrible, senseless, uncaring monster. This rule suggests that anonymous is capable of great and terrible things. And it's interesting how the more I say the word anonymous, the more maybe you picture a singular individual. Maybe you start to feel like it's someone's name, but it's not. It's in group with individuals in it. This rule highlights actions will be taken without empathy or restraint. It really reflects the chaotic and sometimes destructive nature of internet culture. Since anyone can act under the anonymous identity, actions range from harmless pranks to very harmful cyber attacks. This rule here acknowledges that Anonymous, as a collective, has no moral compass. Some individuals may engage in cruel, destructive, criminal, chaotic behavior without concern for consequences. Anonymous has no unified morality. Some actions can be extreme. Rule number 7, Anonymous is still able to deliver. Despite chaos, Anonymous, through individual strength, can achieve objectives. This is highlighting successful operations, pranks, or attacks. This is another warning that anonymous should not be underestimated. It gets results. This rule is here to reinforce the idea that while anonymous may seem disorganized, it can still be highly effective. Hacking, trolling, and organizing large scale online movements are at times chaotic and unpredictable, but at times are effective for better and for worse. Rule number 8, there are no real rules about posting. This rule emphasizes the free for all nature of posting to the internet. Across various platforms and sites, guidelines exist. However, enforcement at times is minimal. Posting is mostly unrestricted and anonymous in spaces across the internet. This rule encourages a culture of lawlessness and free expression, chaos and randomness defining internet culture. On parts of the internet, anything goes. This is rule number 8. Rule number 9, there are no real rules about moderation either. Enjoy your bans. This rule suggests that if you break the rules, you might get banned with no explanation. Moderation is often arbitrary and inconsistent. Some platforms have moderators, but enforcement can be and can feel random, inconsistent, and arbitrary. This rule highlights the lack of consistent or fair moderation across online communities as a whole. It's here to reflect the lawless and chaotic nature of internet communities. Rule number 10, if you enjoy any rival sites, don't. This rule suggests to be accepted, you must reject rival sites. This is a rule of rivalry. Elitist internet subcultures. It's here to suggest if you enjoy or participate in websites that are seen as inferior or competitors, don't. It's an us versus them mentality. It's an elitist attitude. It's here to encourage loyalty to the community and discourage engagement with the competitors. Enjoying or daring to participate in a rival site means you're not fully part of this community. It's sometimes written or expressed tongue in cheek, very haha. However, exclusionary ideation designed to reinforce loyalty and belonging to an in crowd across anonymous forums, you decide. Is this funny or not? Those are the first 10 rules of the internet. There is no universally agreed upon official list. This is not my list. This is a list I'm sharing with you. The first 10 rules are a little bit hyper specific to history, to historical events that maybe haven't been well cataloged, but there are people alive today who lived through them and have different relationships with those first 10 rules. I think the first 10 rules reflect a time in space and place that doesn't exist the same way today at the time of recording. The year is 2025. Today, there are lots of rules about posting. There are lots of auto moderation features at work, for better and for worse. The rival sites are a lot less rival, with cross-posting, multi-posting, multi-streaming, etc. Anonymous is out there doing their thing. We do talk about things. We really do. Rule number 11. All your carefully picked and planned arguments can be ignored and will be. This rule here acknowledges the frustrating reality. No matter how well thought out, reasonable, and logical you express yourself, you can be and will be easily dismissed and ignored. This rule here highlights the futility of trying to convince others online. Serious discussion is often overshadowed with focuses on trolling chaos and random content rather than meaningful debate. This rule suggests that effort and reason is or may be futile in some spaces. Online communities can do and will, at times or always, prioritize chaos and trolling over serious discourse. This rule reflects the difficulty of engaging in productive, healthy, beneficial conversations. Rule number 12, anything you say can and will be used against you. This rule reflects the tendency for online users to twist other words for fun, to ridicule, and to harass. This rule here highlights the danger of online permanence and misinterpretation. This rule is at times playful and an exaggerated reminder. Anything posted online can be twisted, misrepresented, or used to mock and attack you. It's here to reflect on the idea that something posted online could be easily used against you in the future. This rule highlights the risk of saying anything or something can and will be, could be, should be, might be taken out of context. Everything you say online can be misused. It can be turned against you. Time is not kind. I'm old enough that there are words, there are concepts, there are ideologies, there are people that was socially acceptable to communicate with, to treat, and to say, that that's no longer the case, for better and for worse. This rule is especially poignant to anyone that has been online for any length of time. The odds of you saying something that decades down the line are treated, understood differently, only grow. Rule 13, anything you say can be turned into something else, fixed. This rule builds on Rule 12. Not only can what you say be used against you, but can also be recontextualized, altered entirely to suit someone else's narrative and agenda. This may be harmless. This may be a quote being twisted. This may be words being manipulated, suddenly fitting a different purpose. Online cultures often distort and repurpose what is said, sometimes for humor or criticism, sometimes for more manipulative and darker reasons. This suggests that anything you say can be altered to fit a new context or meaning. It reflects the malleable and fluid nature of internet communication. Rule 14, do not argue with trolls. It means they win. Internet trolls are people who intentionally provoke, cause frustration, disrupt, argue, sometimes from a desire for attention or validation, or they're just bored and they can. The idea here that by reacting, they win because you've been drawn into some pointless conflict. Reacting to trolls can worsen situations. Arguing with trolls can give attention they seek. This rule advises against engaging with internet trolls. It's suggesting that not responding to trolls is the best way to defeat them. Here, the rule wants you to ignore provocations and not engage with disruptive users. I've been posting online videos to the internet maybe a little more than a decade now. Internet trolls have not gone away. And in fact, I think some internet trolls are just as trollish off the internet. It's a part of who they are. And that's okay. Some people want to argue and communicate and express in ways that is provocative. And that's okay. Rule number 15: the harder you try, the harder you will fail. This rule expresses the idea that over effort, trying too hard, leads to failure and embarrassment. Attempting to control or perfect something makes it worse. The more you struggle and work and strain and try and succeed, the more you fall short. Over effort or trying too hard is going to result in failure. Trying too hard only backfires and leads to greater failure. Rule 15 reflects the idea that things go wrong whenever you try too intensely. Don't bother. Internet culture sometimes values subtlety and the assumption of natural success over forced effort. This is a particularly malicious rule, as the reality is the nature of the internet often shows a highlight reel and hides the entire iceberg it took to get to that position. Hard work is a part of success. Is it a part of everyone's success? To varying degrees, the answer is yes. This rule, and some of the rules before it, are a reflection of ideas that hadn't quite become fully formed, but were starting to surface. Rule number 16: if you fail in epic proportions, it may just become a winning failure. That's right. Epic failures should be celebrated and admired. This may be something iconic and humorous. Failure is not always negative. It can lead to unexpected success. Instead of being seen as just a failure, your failure all of a sudden is transformed into a winning failure, a moment of legendary status and fame. Please understand, a particularly outrageous, grandiose, admirable, humorous, attention snagging, spectacular failure turns into something positive. Isn't it great how these rules so constantly contradict each other? Back to back to back, they're almost responding. They almost feel like two toddlers fighting. And one toddler's like, but bananas are better than apples. And the others are like, but everyone knows apples are better. But they get a little older and find out you can make a smoothie. I mean, it gets way out of hand, right? Rule number 17: there are no girls on the internet. On the internet, men are men, women are also men, and kids are undercover federal agents. This rule seeks to humorously reflect deeper issues. It is often used as a dismissive remark. Historically, it reflected the idea that many people on the internet would automatically assume anyone claiming to be a lady was lying. Female profile picture, it's got to be a dude. Someone says they're a kid, you're going to jail. This rule was used as a joke. However, it was also used to reinforce toxic attitudes, exclusionary behaviors. It reinforced stereotypes that were not true. When this rule first rolled out to the widespread's a tough word to say, but when it became more than just a handful of friends joking and it moved beyond that, it was funny. It was humorous. Today, this rule is often seen as hateful, hurtful, evil. Time has shaped a lot of these rules in the way that they are believed, understood, and treated. Is this rule toxic? Is this rule humorous? That truly depends on the attitude of the people communicating these rules and the people receiving, responding, and hearing these rules. Rule 18, you cannot divide by zero. Dividing by zero is currently understood as mathematically impossible. This rule is here to suggest that there are limits to what can be accomplished or understood. It's intended as a light-hearted reminder that some things just can't be done. It's here to be used and served humorously to represent situations where something illogical or impossible is attempted. Dividing any number by zero results in an undefined answer. Here in internet culture, with Rule 18, the idea is that attempting something impossible or illogical will often lead to failure or chaos. I hope you can see how Rule 18, you cannot divide by zero, is a further ideation, a further building of the harder you try, the harder you fail, Rule 15. But then Rule 16, if you fail in epic proportions, it may just become a winning failure. Can you see how that's an evolution of those ideas? Rule number 19, you can't have a war on the internet. This rule reflects the idea that internet wars are temporary, meaningless clashes. They do not compare to real world conflicts. Despite heated exchanges and online battles, there's a futility to trying to treat internet disputes as serious, life-changing, impactful, actual wars in the tangible world around us. This rule here highlights the futility of escalating online arguments to extreme levels. Internet wars are temporary, often meaningless clashes. Rule number 20, the internet is serious business. This rule is a ha-ha, a funny, an LOL, laugh out loud. It is a contradiction to the chaotic and humorous nature of many online places. Much of the internet is meant for fun, for distractions, and this rule sarcastically asserts the internet itself is an incredibly serious matter for serious people in serious suits with serious faces. It's often used ironically to mock people who have taken internet drama seriously or treat internet arguments as if the consequences of the real world and all of planet Earth are at stake. The universe will explode. This rule is to reflect the absurdity of taking what is truly a trivial online matter too seriously. Can you feel it? The internet's growing up. Rules, 0 through 10 were hyper specific, almost like little footnotes in history. Rule 11 to 20 got very broad, very broad. And it started to treat people about, I've heard called netiquette, which is internet etiquette. It started to emphasize the importance of our interactions online actually mattering, actually affecting us when we go offline, when we shut down, turn off, power down, walk away. It started to try and emphasize, to train, to teach, to pilot online interactions towards a more balanced approach. Rules 11 through 20 could almost seen as community guidelines. How do you go online and not lose yourself? How to interpret text on a screen when there's no body language, no tone. Our baby's growing up. As a header here to rules 21 to 30, these almost feel like laws and realities. They're a little different. They're a little more specific again in their approach. Less of a historical feel and more of a Things maybe you should know if you're going to be on the internet. Some of them still apply, some of them don't, depending on how serious you take this satirical rule set. Oh, man. The rules of the internet. Rule 21: the more you know, the more you will be hated. Those who display a deeper understanding may be branded as out of touch and elitist. Knowledge and expertise can lead to resentment. The more you know, the more likely you are to attract criticism or disdain. Your knowledge and insight can isolate you and make sure that you are a target for hate. Internet spaces may prefer humor, chaos, superficial interactions, and sometimes the more you know, the more you will be hated. Rule 22: it's a prank, bro. The phrase, it's a prank, is often used sarcastically to dismiss any negative consequences of trolling or other problematic actions. Please, it was a harmless joke. Relax, it's a prank. This is used to justify harmless or chaotic action. It reflects the idea that some users dismiss the consequence of their actions by calling them jokes. They're harmless pranks, even when they're not. Rule 23: you will always find a bigger fish. No matter how skilled, powerful, or influential you may be offline, online, there is someone bigger and more capable. This rule reflects the constant nature of competition. Someone is one step ahead. No matter how good you are, someone else has and will or is surpassing you. In any situation, there's always a bigger fish lurking. Someone better and more powerful than you. Someone who can outdo you. Rule 24: if you are not outraged, you're not paying attention. This rule suggests that you're not reacting strongly enough. You're not paying enough attention to what's really happening. This rule here reflects the tendencies for online interaction and internet culture and discourse to amplify emotional reactions. It implies people are expected to be outraged and overly emotional about things. If you're not reacting strongly, you're not even engaging with the issue at hand. This rule here is really a commentary on the tendency to sensationalize topics and make everything seem like an urgent crisis. Rule 25: the internet is for porn. While exaggerated, this rule points to the widespread availability and consumption of explicit material online. This rule is exaggerating the significant portion of online activity that revolves around adult content. This rule suggests that adult content has been a foundational part of internet culture. This rule is a joke and a commentary on how adult content has been a long-standing and pervasive part of internet culture. Rule 26: everyone is a critic. This rule acknowledges the universal nature of criticism on the internet. No matter the content, idea, or project shared, there will always be people willing to criticize it. People without any expertise or constructive input. It's here to reflect in the vast world of online communities. Everyone feels entitled and able and willing and justified to their opinion, want it or not, harsh or negative, positive or not. It suggests that criticism is inevitable, regardless of value. No matter what you do, there will be people who disapprove or offer negative feedback. Everyone online feels empowered to criticize anything and everyone, voicing unfiltered opinions. Rule 27: anything that can be labeled can be hated. This rule suggests that labels breed animosity and hatred. Once something is labeled, it's often met with bias and strong negativity as labels lead to dismissal and hatred. This rule highlights the power of labeling in fostering division and negativity. This rule highlights the power of labeling in fostering division and negativity. It becomes easier for others to dismiss and criticize and dislike what has been labeled without understanding the nuance of the subject. Online communities will quickly label things, ideas, individuals, and immediately develop strong biases toward them based on those labels. Rule 28, always question gender regardless what they say. This rule can be intended as a joke, but it can also contribute to harmful and disrespectful behavior. It encourages questioning or challenging a person's gender, regardless of their identification. It suggests that we need to reject and disbelieve personal gender claims. This rule reflects a provocative and problematic question, challenge of someone's identity and presentation. It highlights a tendency in some online spaces to doubt or dismiss personal identity, often in a disruptive and mocking manner. This rule can reinforce harmful attitudes and expressions, sometimes used ironically as part of internet humor. Right? Doesn't it? Right? It's a joke, right? It's a prank, bro. Can you see how these rules start to build on each other? How these ones are kind of specific, but they're also kind of broad? Rule 29, in internet arguments, the first person to bring up Nazis or Hitler automatically loses the argument. In internet arguments, the first person to bring up Nazis or Hitler automatically loses the argument. Oh, man. This rule suggests that in any online debate, you refer to someone as a Nazi, as Hitler, you are signaling the argument has reached an extreme and unreasonable point. Invoking these figures and movements ends all constructive debate. It is a tactic of desperation or extreme exaggeration. Your arguments have lost all reason or control. You're mentioning Nazis or Hitler to undermine the validity of everything. Users use these references to derail productive debate and collapse credibility. Rule 30, you must have pictures. Anything can be explained with a picture. Prove your statement. This rule emphasizes the importance of visual evidence. It suggests, regardless of the topic, claims and statements are met with skepticism. A well-chosen picture can simplify and enhance understanding. Complex ideas are digestible. Anything can be made more clear and convincing with the right image. Pics or it didn't happen. Can you feel how rules 21 through 31 feel like law? They feel like telling you how to interpret reality. They feel like warnings. They feel hyper-specific while being wildly broad, where clearly something happened somewhere to someone with something by someone else. And now we need to make a rule about it. That kind of applies other places all of a sudden. Rules 31 through 40 are more focused on culture, less on how to behave, less on community guidelines and realities, but more jokes that over time became a rule instead of rules that were treated as a joke. Rule 31, lurk more. Lurking often refers to familiarizing yourself with a culture and the rules, but never posting, never engaging. This rule advises new users to spend more time observing an online community before actively participating in them. It encourages a more thoughtful and less hasty approach. It's here to suggest that spending time observing before engaging can prevent mistakes and misunderstandings. It's here to encourage newcomers to learn the ropes, familiarize yourself with the rules. It reflects that online communities have rules, written and unwritten, and understanding them is valuable. Rule 32, nothing is sacred. This rule reflects the irreverent nature of internet culture. No topic, no person, no idea is off limits to ridicule. Anything online, be it a serious social issue, a public figure, a cherished cultural concept, is immediately subject to humor, criticism, and or mockery. This rule suggests that anything, no matter how important or sacred, can be questioned and will be joked about. Humorously, we're here to clown. It reflects the tendency of internet culture to disrupt traditional boundaries and expectation. The internet encourages questioning and challenging societal norms and figures. No topic, person, or idea is beyond ridicule or mockery online. Rule number 33. The more beautiful and pure a thing is, the more satisfying it is to corrupt it. This rule is a reflection of the darker side. It's a reflection of satisfaction in taking something considered pure and beautiful and making it controversial, distorted, corrupted. Shock value. We're here to subvert innocence. Here to undermine the goodness of a topic, person, or idea. This is done to provoke reactions or challenge what is considered sacred. This is often done for shock value or amusement to provoke others. This rule suggests that the more idolized something is, the more enticing it becomes to corrupt and challenge. This rule reflects the dark side, the darker side of internet culture. Rule 34, if it exists, there is porn of it. No exceptions. This rule here humorously asserts that any concept, character, thing, anything will eventually be turned into adult content. No matter what exists, it's likely there is adult content made about it, around it, for it. This rule reflects the extensive and often surprising, if not bizarre, creative reaches of internet culture. Real or fictional, nothing is off limits from being reinterpreted. This rule highlights the internet's vast and often boundary-pushing approach to creation. Fictional characters, inanimate objects, abstract concepts. The internet is full of people. And people are creative and will find ways to express that creativity, sometimes with adult material. Rule number 35, if no porn is found, it will be made. This rule extends the previous rule, 34. It's here to suggest that the internet will eventually, on a long enough timeline, regardless of the time it was absent before, but on a long enough timeline, endless creativity and boundary pushing exists. If something has not yet been sexualized and transformed into adult material, it is only a matter of time before someone produces it. This rule emphasizes the relentless nature of the internet's ability to generate content, and more importantly, all of humanity, our ability to creatively, relentlessly generate, create, produce, publish. No matter how niche or unconventional, eventually. Rule number 36, no matter how horrible something is, there is always worse. This rule suggests there's always something more extreme. It reflects the tendency of internet cultures to push boundaries and escalate negativity. This rule highlights the dark and often disturbing, offensive, and upsetting side of internet culture. No matter what, no matter how extreme or horrifying, it's here reflecting the idea the internet will escalate and push boundaries. There's a deeper level of discomfort, absurdity, and shock value. This rule can be seen as a commentary on the endless pursuit of more provocative content. It highlights the unending cycle of extremism and shock value online. Rule number 37, you cannot divide by zero. Ha, just kidding. Chuck Norris can. Chuck Norris defies all logic and can accomplish the impossible. Dividing by zero is a mathematical impossibility, but Chuck Norris is humorously claimed to be able to do it. This rule is a part of what was a broader trend of Chuck Norris facts, exaggerating his strength, invincibility, and supernatural abilities for comedic effect. This rule is a humorous nod to an internet meme culture surrounding Chuck Norris. Rule number 38, no real limits apply to the internet. This rule here emphasizes the boundless and often unrestricted nature of the internet. Unlike the tangible physical world, the digital virtual world of the internet has few limitations in what can be shared, created, experienced. The vastness of the internet means people might be bypassing traditional boundaries. There's a sense of freedom and sometimes lawlessness. There's an openness. There's vast possibilities. The internet operates with few societal, legal, ethical, traditional, moral restrictions, allowing for a wide range of content and activity. This is the first rule that is written in all caps, all uppercase letters, full bold here. Rule 39, caps lock is cruise control for cool. This rule is a playful commentary. It's a joke that plays on how people use all caps for emphasis or attention. It reflects the exaggerated belief that typing in all caps makes you seem more intense or important. It suggests that typing in all caps is thought automatically to make things impactful, even if it's overused. It's a part of internet culture to exaggerate, poking fun at how people sometimes believe all caps is assertive and energetic. This is the second rule with all uppercase, all caps, full bold, big letters. Rule 40, even with cruise control, you still have to steer. Even with cruise control, you still have to steer. This rule is a reminder that no matter how much technology or convenience makes things easier, you need to be paying attention. It can imply here that in situations where systems are set up and things are running well, you still need to direct or manage the outcome, the expectation. Even if caps lock is cruise control for cool, you need to steer and make decisions, even in simple situations. You need to remain in control and make conscious decisions. Can you feel it? Our baby's all grown up here. Rules 31 through 40. Heavy cultural context here. They still have some netiquette, some online etiquette to them, right? Like if you're typing in caps, everyone thinks you're shouting, calm down, Sparky. You're not the firebrand and revolutionary you think you are. But at the same time, there's this lawlessness. No limits apply. You can divide by zero if you're Chuck Norris. Nothing is sacred. All of a sudden, it's Pixar, it didn't happen. And then it gets dark, right? We want to corrupt things. You can't imagine how horrible something is, but then it's always worse. There's so much variety and flavor here. It's almost like your toddler's gone to school and they've met other kids. And all of a sudden, They're using words you didn't know they knew because they learned them at school. All of a sudden, they're behaving in ways you didn't expect because school is teaching them things for better and for worse. They're interacting with people and they're starting to understand that the world's bigger than them, but it's funny and it's fun and it's also kind of scary and dangerous, but it's where we live and it is our life, our place, our space. And so there's a culture around it. There's creativity around it. There's positive aspects and there are negatives. Rules 41 through 50 have a little bit of a darker turn, a little bit more of a negative reflection of things, less general and more specific. Rule 41, Desu isn't funny. Seriously, guys, it's worse than the game. Oh, yeah. Some of you might think this is a deep cut. The game was a well known internet game where participants are constantly playing and losing. By simply thinking about it, I've just taken points away from you. You're losing the game because I said the game. But if I'm playing the game, you're losing the game. This DESU, this Desu, however you want to say it, originated from a character in an anime. Yep. An anime character. Their name was just slapped on for comedic effect. Over time, this repetition became overused and was widely considered annoying enough to make its way onto Rule 41. This rule is a commentary on how some memes, jokes, when overused, lose their humor and instead become frustrating. To become more irritating than the game is an accomplishment. And here we are suggesting that repeated certain memes, certain jokes, too much, can turn them into a source of irritation rather than comedy. This rule is almost a warning. Can you feel it? It's a little darker, isn't it? Hey, it's not funny. That's the type of rule it is, huh? Rule 41. A crossover, no matter how improbable, will eventually happen. Crossovers between different fictional and real universes, no matter how unlikely, will happen. This phenomena can occur through both official and fan-driven content. It's here to suggest the internet will always find a way to bring together even the most improbable crossover. This rule here highlights the boundless creativity of the internet, where even the most implausible combinations are brought to life, for better and for worse. Rule number 42, tits or GTFO, the choice is yours. Get out. This rule humorously, yet disrespectfully, suggests users should be sharing revealing images or they should leave conversations. This rule reflects the objectification that occurs. This rule is recognized as problematic and offensive by many. This rule is often criticized for its attitudes, for its dismissive, for its objectification, for its expression that revealing images are required to participate. This phrase is part of toxic, dangerous, harmful, negative, criminal internet behavior. It is often viewed as inappropriate and disrespectful, if not outright criminal. Rule number 43, the pool is always closed. This rule suggests that no matter the situation, certain things are out of reach or unavailable. This is a reference to a missed opportunity or rejection. This rule plays on the ideas of no matter how much you might want to, the pool is always closed. It's a way to express frustration with missed opportunities. Rule number 44, the internet is not your personal army. The not is uppercase, capitalized, bold. The internet is not your personal army. This rule is a reminder the internet should not be used as a tool for personal vendettas. You're not here to recruit others to fight your battles, online or offline. This rule highlights the problems of using online communities and platforms to rally support for personal causes, harassing others, and other harmful personal agendas. The internet is not a tool for personal revenge. The internet should not be exploited as your own army. This rule emphasizes the importance of respecting diverse, different, separate internet communities. The internet is a space for diverse individuals, creative ideas, and attempting to use the internet as an extension of your own personal grievance is wrong. Rule number 45. Rule 45 is a lie. That's the rule. Rule number 45. Quotations. Rule 45 is a lie. End quote. This rule is a playful, self-referential joke where it contradicts itself by claiming its own falsehood. In reality, rule number 45 doesn't provide any information. Its purpose is to be paradoxical, therefore conveying information. It's highlighting the absurdity of rules in internet culture. Contradictions, nonsensical statements are made for comedic and or confusing effects. This rule plays on the idea of trolling or the fun of intentionally misleading and frustrating people by having a rule that denies its very own existence. It serves as a joke while also reflecting the absurdity of self-referential nature, of inherently contradictions, of humorously stating, of the confusing nature of internet culture. Rule number 46. The cake is a lie. This rule suggests that promises or rewards may be deceptive, leaving one disappointed and misled. This rule originated from a video game, Portal. In the game, players are promised cake as a reward. As the game progresses, it is revealed that cake is an empty promise, a metaphor for false hope and unobtainable goals. It reflects a deeper sense of betrayal, of manipulation, while also humorously and ironically, it symbolizes false hope and deception, while also representing situations where something promised is never delivered. This rule reflects a deeper sense of betrayal and is often used humorously or ironically. Rule number 47, anonymous is not your personal therapist. This rule is an important reminder that online spaces, places, community platforms, etc., are not appropriate, helpful, beneficial spaces for seeking medical professionals for your health and well-being. This is not a space to engage with personal therapy in the growth and reflection and the desire to unload emotional burdens. Some people may turn to these platforms for advice or support. This rule here emphasizes that expecting personal, professional, needed psychological, physiological, medical attention, help, assistance from anonymous strangers is unrealistic, dangerous, and can often lead to negative and unhelpful outcomes. This rule emphasizes the importance of proper health resources rather than relying on unqualified anonymous strangers. Rule number 48, a cat is fine too. This rule is a humorous, nonchalant response to situations where a specific request or choice is made but an alternative is equally acceptable. This rule plays on the randomness of the internet. People often get overly specific, and this rule serves as a reminder that simply sometimes silly alternatives are perfectly fine as well. This rule suggests that even if things don't go as planned, an unexpected outcome can still work just fine. This rule is often used to humorously point things that don't need to be overcomplicated or specific. This is a reflection of the lighthearted nature of things. Random suggestions are often embraced. Rule number 49. One cat leads to another. This rule humorously suggests that once you encounter a cat, it often leads to encountering more cats. Whether it's because of the addictive nature of cat content or because people often adopt multiple cats. It's an exaggerated way of saying that the fascination with cats is contagious, and one cat leads to a growing collection of cats. The appeal of cats leads to more cats, creating a cycle of fascination or collection. Once you start with one cat, it's easy to become surrounded by more. This is often used in reference to the endless stream of cat-related content across the internet. Rule number 50, no exceptions. This rule is straightforward and an absolute statement. It emphasizes the strictness, the unyielding regulation. It suggests that once a rule is in place, there is no exceptions, no matter how reasonable or necessary they may seem. This rule highlights the meaning that rules or ideas should be followed without deviation. It's sometimes used for comedic effect to emphasize how non-negotiable or overly rigid something is. This rule seeks to highlight the humor of an absolute rule, especially in situations where there seems a deserving exception, but instead are bound by the rules, as apparently there's no exception. In a world, in a space, in a web, in an internet where flexibility and nuance are valued, this is a contradiction, emphasizing the absolute statement, the absoluteness of a particular rule. Can you kind of feel how rules 41 to 50 had a darker side to them? Something bad happened. And now there's a rule about it, okay? Was it all bad? Was it all dark and negative? No, but they definitely had a darker edge to them than some of the other rules, which were a little more open-ended and playful. Rules 51 through 60 are just general internet laws, okay? It's kind of not really reinventing the wheel here. They're not hyper specific. They're almost too broad where they lack some meaning, but they've also been emphasized earlier on. These rules almost feel like a repeat, but our baby's growing up and they're about to leave the nest. They're about to fly away. They're going to go to university, to college. They're going to be living on their own. And all of a sudden, we need to make sure that they heard us. They really heard us, right? Repeat it back to me. What did I say? Are you getting it? Do you understand? Right? These are just general internet rules. General rules. Relax. Relax. Rule number 51. You cannot win against the internet. This rule reflects the idea the internet is a vast, ever-evolving space and is ultimately impossible to control or defeat. The internet's diversity, unpredictability, and its power to create phenomena make it impossible to come out on top in a lasting way. This rule is to remind people that the internet's collective power, the people posting, publishing, sharing, commenting, lurking, are overwhelming, and an attempt to win is often futile. No matter how hard you try and fight, control, or argue with the internet, it is too vast and constantly changing to be defeated. Can you feel how that one rule almost summarized the entirety of rules 1 through 10? Can you feel it? Oh man. What an interesting evolution of a rule. Rule 52. You cannot survive without the internet. This rule reflects modern society's dependence on the internet. The internet has become integral to daily life, communication, work, entertainment, the accessing of information. Living without it seems nearly impossible. I'm going to tell you right now. I remember being detailed to the utmost detailing of how important it was to learn the Dewey Decimal System so you could get a book from the library and why libraries were so important. Today, the Dewey Decimal System and your pencil and your card do not exist. They used to glue onto the back cover of books a sheath for you to slide your paper in, for you to mark you had it. Society has become dependent on the internet for both practical needs and social interactions. In today's world, the internet is essential to survival. No, it's not food, water, shelter. But today, as a recording, it's the year 2025. It is food, water, shelter equivalent. Nobody needs to know the Dewey Decimal System. Nobody needs to be gluing things in the books and writing with pencils. But if you want to check out a book, if you want to have that communication, if you want to have that entertainment, you want to access the information, you want to have a social interaction, you have a practical need. In today's world, the internet is essential. Its role in communication, work, access to general knowledge is fundamental and foundational of how we build and interact with the world around us. In a practical sense, the internet could go down and mankind, humankind, womankind, alien kind, all the kinds, we'd all be fine. We'd keep living, food, water, shelter. But in reality, we are interconnected people. And the online world and the digital age is now an environment where you cannot survive without the internet. Rule number 53, the internet is forever. This rule again stresses that once something is given life and posted, published, presented, uploaded to the internet, it is stored forever somewhere, somehow, and could resurface at any time. This is a cautionary reminder. Online content may be deleted, but it might also be accessible indefinitely. This permanence can have consequences, especially in the context of privacy, reputation, and legal issues. This rule serves as a reminder to think carefully about what is shared online because no matter what, it may come back to haunt you. It's important to be mindful of what is posted and the potential long-term consequences. Rule number 54. Everything can be a meme. Wow. A meme is something that spreads rapidly. It's something that's humorous and satirical. It can take many forms: an image, a video, a phrase, a trend. Rule 54 acknowledges the creativity and unpredictability of internet users. Anything can be virtually transformed into a viral, reoccurring joke. It highlights just how the boundaries of what can become a meme are incredibly broad and ever changing. Again, I remember a time before the word meme was so widespread. I'm looking forward to what the next term is. Or does meme stay around another couple decades? I don't know. But meme culture reflects the fluidity, the unpredictability, the creativity of ideas, images, and moments going viral and becoming part of the online lexicon. Oh, an online lexicon. How dangerous. This rule highlights the boundaries of what can become a meme are broad and ever changing. Just want to make sure I say that twice, right? Make sure I emphasize that. Come on. We can't forget, right? Could be funny. Rule number 55. The internet is full of lies. Trust no one. Oh. This rule reflects the idea the internet is full of valuable information. It's also full of falsehoods and deception. It's difficult to trust what you see or hear. False information, misleading claims, hoaxes are rampant. This rule is a cautionary reminder. The internet offers a wealth of information, while it also contains a great deal of falsehoods. Trust is not to be assumed. Users should approach with skepticism. Lies abound. Rule number 56. Anonymous does not forgive. Anonymous does not forget. Anonymous can be anywhere. Yeah, that's right. Fast forward into the future, and this gets a second rule. Something's changed here. Is Anonymous a powerful and unyielding force whose actions are unpredictable with no forgiveness? This rule highlights the idea is once someone is targeted by Anonymous, there will be ongoing consequences with no opportunity for reconciliation. The group is unpredictable, acting from any location at any time, making them a constant looming threat. It's a weird rule to get a repeat, isn't it? It's the only official word for word repeat rule. And you got to wonder how this one gets repeated. There's more than one of these rules of the internet list. There's lots of them. A shockingly high number of them have repeat anonymouses, or if you go back far enough, someone has edited out the repeat of the anonymous rule. I've kept mine in here as I don't understand it enough to make a decision either way. A lot of the internet rules have kind of scrubbed some of this anonymous stuff, and I don't really understand it. I'm not close enough to the topic to share my opinion either way, as I don't have one. I don't have enough information, knowledge, or firsthand experience to do so. I'm not looking for that, but I am saying that it stood out to me when I was combing through the various lists of rules of the internet out there that are very public. This one gets a repeat quite often, but it also is one that's quite often scrubbed. That is highly curious. Rule number 57. Nothing is ever truly deleted. Can you hear it? There's a parent here who's really trying to teach their child, like, hey, you're moving on. I'm just reminding you, right? The internet's forever. I know you can't survive without it. I know everything can be a joke. It's not that big of a deal, but, nothing's ever truly deleted. Rule number 57, right? This rule is once again emphasizing that once something is online, it is impossible to completely remove and delete. Data can be stored, cached, and archived in ways that are inaccessible to your deletion and may become accessible later. Nothing is ever truly erased from the internet. Once it's online, it can be found again. This rule is a continued cautionary reminder that online actions have consequences, for better and for worse. Rule number 58. There's always someone watching. Online activities are never private. Someone is always able to observe online activities. Private messages, comments, media posts. There's always a chance that someone, a user, a company, a government, is paying attention to what you are doing. This rule is a reminder of the lack of privacy online. This rule is a reminder of the surveillance in the digital world. Nothing done on the internet is truly anonymous or private. There is always someone watching. Can you feel it? The parent desperately trying to tell their kid, hey, just look, you're going to do something dumb, but someone's going to record it and post it online. Don't do that. Okay. Like, keep your pants on, right? Like, can you feel the parent panicking as they really start to feel like their child just doesn't get it? You're trying to protect them, but you don't know what to do, right? Rule number 59. If it exists, it has lore. If it doesn't have lore, there will be lore. And the longer the lore around something is, the weirder it gets. Lore is a deeper narrative. Sometimes it's not even something that was originally intended to have a deeper narrative. If something exists on the internet, people will eventually build lore around it, no matter how trivial or nonsensical it may seem. As time goes on, this lore tends to get more bizarre and outlandish. This often evolves in ways that becomes increasingly strange and exaggerated. This rule reflects the internet's creative tendency and the human need to read, build, tell, understand, listen, explain, expound stories. Even insignificant things develop complex narratives. Anything on the internet will eventually have some lore created, whether or not there's truly an original backstory. A myth will grow. If it exists, it has lore, and if it doesn't, there will be lore. And the longer the lore around something exists, the weirder it tends to get. Rule number 60. When one sees lions, one must get into the car. This rule sounds humorous, but it's actually a reminder to remove oneself from dangerous situations when possible. A dangerous situation, such as encountering a lion, the smart move is to take protective action, like getting into a car. The best course of action is to remove oneself from harm by getting into a safer space. This meme, this joke, this line, this parable plays on the idea that the obvious response to danger, the obvious response to a threatening scenario is to seek shelter or protection. The wild lions are here to emphasize the importance of taking safety measures. This rule is humorous and somewhat absurd, yet it's still that parent trying to make sure what they say is remembered and understood. Trying to make sure that as their child leaves the nest and goes out, they have the rules of the internet with them. There is no universally agreed upon official list of the rules of the internet. The rules have evolved over time. Some versions of this list contain more rules. Some versions contain less rules. Some rules are more famous than others. There is no universally agreed upon official list. The rules of the internet are a chaotic, satirical, humorous, wild, orderly set of guidelines. Should you live your life by these rules? Yes and no. Some of these rules are pretty good. Some of them, not so much. Should this change the way you engage with the World Wide Web? Maybe, maybe not. There is no universally agreed upon list. The year is 2025. Maybe in 25 years from now, there's going to be an official list of these are the rules. But you and I both know the harder you try, the harder you will fail. And of course, I mean, if they say these are the rules, do not argue with trolls, then they win. And obviously, nothing is supposed to be taken seriously. Nothing is sacred. And, as long as Chuck Norris can divide by zero, don't worry about it. Rule 45 is a lie. I'm consistently random. The end.